Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this afternoon session. We know it's already 2.5 long days here at NDM UN 29, but we are very pleased to now host this session on underwater explosives, past, present, future. We know we're with the strange guys here. The major focus is obviously on landmines. We are now the underwater guys, but there are also plenty of reasons why to look also towards the underwater domain, and we will hear more about this in the next hour with a fabulous panel here showing scientific perspective, a national perspective, but also more the global perspective, what are different UN agencies currently doing in this regard. Now, what is the aim of this session? On the one hand, it's awareness raising. We only know that we can only cause action if we are actually aware of the different risks. But for this audience especially, it's not just about raising awareness about the risks, but actually also about the solutions and current developments that are going on in this regard of this topic. And how will we go exactly about this? So I will give some quick introduction about me and the organization I'm representing. Then we will go step by step with the different presentations. If there are any direct burning questions as a direct response to what was said, feel free after each presentation to raise your hand. It shall really be an engaging discussion together with you. While there is expertise on the table, on the panel, we are definitely also happy to hear from your perspectives and contexts in the different countries. But in general, please also maybe keep your questions for the later than Q&A discussion towards the end of the session. Now quickly about me. My name is Paul Rautenhofer. I'm a science policy advisor at JPI Oceans. What is JPI Oceans? JPI Oceans is a trans-governmental platform with a secretariat in Brussels and Belgium. Trans-governmental, what is that? We don't bring together entire governments, but actually just the ministries of science and research. Those are sitting in our management board, and through that we have a pure focus on marine science. We always try to tackle emerging, upcoming topics. And in this regard, we also got in touch with the topic of munitions in the sea, how we call it in simplified terms. This is already more than 10 years ago that we actually got in touch with this topic. We were running for several years a so-called knowledge hub. That means we tried in our member states, they were nominating experts, their top experts on this topic, bring them together, and through that have a coordinated approach and discussion how we can actually deal with this issue. Right now, so while this topic for JPI Oceans kind of has actually ended officially, we think that we've raised to some extent the awareness. The European Commission is now on the topic, but still we as a secretariat are now involved in 2 EU research projects, in the Minesweeper project and Camera project, and this is also the capacity I'm here today. Now quickly, what is really driving us to be here today? It's to some extent also not showing general speaking about the topic, but that actually there's a certain momentum to speak about this topic, especially in Europe, but as we will hear then later, I mean also in many different other world regions. In Europe, it's very interesting to hear now that we got a European Ocean Pact. So the European Union last year launched the process of having a comprehensive maritime strategy. And in this regard, on the maritime security pillar, they also speak of a flagship initiative to work on Europe-wide UXO removal strategies, starting in the North, Baltic, and Black Sea. So this is what's currently being consulted and discussed. How can we actually go about it? What does this really mean, a strategy in this regard to build up? There will also be a legal document published next year, so this is something in the pipeline. And another thing where we're still about figuring out what this exactly will look like is that last year on the sidelines of the UN Ocean Conference, also Germany and France pledged that they will look into the topic in more detail, will create joint expert groups, etc. So we're also happy to hear more in this regard. And also very nice to see, especially because we are here, organized by GSEHD, that also they published last year a report specifically on the underwater explosives issue. And all of this, together with also more and more events and public discourse on the topic happening, gives us the feeling that we're actually right now really on a time to strengthen the discourse in all different directions and come together as a community. Now, spoken enough. with the introductory words, I'm very happy to hand over to Professor Jens Kreinert from the Geomar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel, Germany. And he will now give a bit of overview from the science perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I will give a kind of overview, legacy munition, European waters, the problem and the current European way forward. And the problem, for example, is shown here. And I think there's also a movie. So, I mean, you know that munition is entering the marine world during war activities and during shooting ranges and those kind of things. But also, this was particularly the case in Germany after the Second World War during demilitarization activities. And they threw a lot of munition simply in the sea. This was like dumping large scale 1.6 million tons of munition in German waters alone. And we still have the remains, of course, at the bottom because they have not been cleared. We know from archive analysis that specific dump sites have been designated before. And we know, for example, from encounters in the European waters where this munition is. And these encounters are typically jettisons or actually mines and bombs that have been dropped or artillery shells that have been dropped during war activities. So we have some knowledge about what is where. And we also know that, of course, this marine munition is affecting offshore wind demands, shipping, fishing, safe of navigation, but also beach walkers. I mean, you can find munition objects on the beach, for phosphorus, for example. Yeah, and what the science brought into play is that, of course, all this munition releases toxic substances. Yeah, if you use TNT as a benzoyl ring, it's toxic. It's mutagenic and carcinogenic. You don't want to have it in the environment. You don't want to have it in the fish, and we can measure it in the fish. Yeah, so there is simply toxic substances in the water. And what we have done now for more than 10 years in Europe, we had a lot of European Union projects. Yeah, it's a lot. You don't have to read them. The smaller, the older. But the more important ones are at the current projects, and two of them were mentioned already by Paul before. So there is a European community of scientists that gathers now for 10 years to study what is the issue of marine munition when it comes to environmental concerns mainly. When you talk about offshore wind constructions, yeah, I mean, there are companies who can remediate munition in the sea if they have to clear a way for a pipeline. This can be done. But is there another meaning and another reason why you should clear munition? And we think, yes, the environmental impact is very important. And also was mentioned on the previous slide, munition is also a security issue. It can be used and is also used, for example, for blast fishing. Then the blast fishing has an impact on the environment because it damages the environment. So there is some knowledge, and in Europe we did this. Many of those projects have different types of aspects. A lot of them deal with technical issues, others with knowledge compilation and education. Yeah, so there are projects who specifically compile knowledge to transfer to others. This might be of interest for some of you. Yeah, and in the Minesweeper project, we specifically also dedicate consultancy to people who ask us. And the Minesweeper project still runs until 2028. So there is a possibility where we can get in direct contact, and we are happy to help you. Just for some of you might be new, so how is technology looking like when you go at sea? So the top left image is a ship that I sailed with quite often. What we do is we use state-of-the-art technology, AUVs, robots, all these kind of things. This is not cheap equipment. This is expensive equipment, and you need technicians, but you get very good results. If somebody wants to monitor and map an area in 3 kilometers water depth, this can be done. We can also do 5-meter water depth, but we can also do deep. So technical means for mapping wherever in the ocean is existing. So there's no hurdle of not getting information. So this simply exists. Just some examples from the German Baltic Sea. So you see the video, and there's munition, some munition boxes, piles, and this is how it looks like when you go to an area in Germany, Lübeck Bay, it's in the Baltic Sea. That's a very touristy area. And just 2 kilometers off the beach, there are piles and piles and piles of munition lying there. Yeah? On the bottom, on the top left, you see a photomosaic, actually, a reconstruction of a rocket warhead. which is an old V1 warhead. Maybe you've heard about the V2, this rocket from the Nazis. This was the V1. It's 1 ton of munition, yeah, in a big, looks like a barrel. And we have hundreds of those barrels just lying there. So this is our issue. And these open V1 warheads, they release a lot of toxins, and we have high concentrations in the water. There are solutions. So Germany issued a 100 million euro test clearance proposal in 2022, and they did some test clearance right in 2024 and in 2025. And the aim is to develop a disposal platform so that you have a kind of barge where the munition is not being detonated, that's really bad for the environment, but where munition is being recovered and then disposed, so cut in bits and pieces, and then burned at sea. So a mobile platform that can do the disposal, yeah, because we really think it is better to take the munition out, if you can do this, if it's safe to do, yeah, and then dispose it in an environmentally friendly way, so that's quite important. This just shows you a ROV transect over a little bit of a part that has been cleared. You see munition boxes, these are 2-centimeter grenades, which are open now. So there is a pile, it's along the red line on the right-hand side, so you see the wooden parts of the boxes still. So this has been cleared, not completely, but then we go into the area where you have, I think these were more than 2,000 munition boxes. Yeah? It's 24 tons of 2-centimeter grenades, one pile, and we have ample of those. What is the way forward? So we have these European Union projects, we acquired a lot of knowledge, and we also have means and scientifically based ways to prioritize what you should do if you have a certain amount of money or if you want to start acting. Yeah? So sometimes these ideas, what needs to be done next, is more a kind of gut feeling than a real proper scientifically sound decision based on different parameters that had weighting factors, and you come to an objective decision what to do. So we developed technical means to do this, and I think with this I'm more or less done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With this regard, are there any burning questions? Otherwise, please, sir.
Thank you very much. I have only a small question. Yeah. You mentioned that you are doing in the ocean. Is the solutions for small rivers or some dams or something else?
It doesn't matter. As long as it's wet, we are happy. It can be salty or fresh water. It can be dams. It can be rivers. It doesn't matter. The solutions are the same. Yeah. So the technical means. This was your question, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No,
because I'm facing a problem somewhere in Middle East. So there's a small river with the dam, and yeah, this all is affected with explosives.
Yeah. We have the same in Germany as well. So particularly small caliber munition after the World War was simply thrown by the soldiers in rivers and lakes, and they are full. So we have the same. So the technology can be applied there as well.
Also, you have the same problem in Jordan River between Jordan and Israel. Yeah. I try to, but it is politic.
Next week, I get visitors from Israel actually talking about the issue, what can be done, for example. So we are happy to help and discuss.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll see you after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In this regard, maybe also to mention that actually here in Switzerland, there was even an idea competition, because also the lakes here in Switzerland, some of them are full with munition that were dumped in there, and also there are certain developments going on, so there might be also interesting solutions coming up. With this, I'm very happy to hand over to our next speaker, Clifford Tanuki from Solomon Islands, who will give us a bit of national perspective of the other end of the world.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Clifford, as Paul mentioned, Director Policy OD within Solomon Islands UXO sector. I will briefly on my slides just to touch on what's the risk and why it matters, our approach, and then the challenges, and then what is the way forward. So, on historical context, World War II. Quite a number of ammunition was shipped into the country to support military operations. weather risk, so one of our big, not really a big island, but just where our capital city situated. You see the circle, the Battle of Guadalcanal. If you look through the internet, quite a number of ships being sunk within the circle, and multiple stockpiles also within it. So far, there is no research to find the extent of the amount of the contamination, but according to history, a lot of ships have been sunk within there. And also along the coastal waters of our islands, especially during storms, a lot of munitions be washed up to shore as well, on the reefs and also our shipping routes. Explosive types of ordnance, it ranges from, aircraft bombs, 100-pound to 1,000-pound bombs, the naval shells, torpedoes, and also depth bombs. So our main priority concern is safety of our people, or human safety. Then we have the national security, which James also touched on. Nowadays, people tend to involve or access to an explosive ordnance and modify it and do it like fish bombs. And also, the other priorities is our economic development and also the impact it poses to our environment. Our approach, so we just recently established our National UXO Authority at the policy level, and now at the operational level, that's where I sit in. We respond to our operations alongside with our multi-agency operators, such as INGO, which is we have Hello Trust currently in the country. Our approach at the operation level that we respond, locate, and dispose of in a safe manner with those explosive ordnances. Key challenges, so we have a small number of underwater capability, number of qualified divers to respond, especially, it's more like reactive, not proactive, like we, community or local residents out in the water, find a bomb, just give us a call and then we respond. So our response is more reactive. And as James also did mention, is operation underwater is really expensive. We haven't completed that. I did mention there is no research done to all those sunken ships. And also, as you see on the map, we have a geographical spread out of our islands, which they are also contaminated with explosive ordnances. As I did mention, we already have an established authority, and currently we are working on our legislative framework to give us teeth to bite. Then currently we have partnership with UNDP, and from other side events, we have the University of Queensland on their finding, especially on the unexploded ordnance impact to our environment and even on public safety. And then also we have our technical partners, and also not forgetting our donors, which is the US and Japan. Our future goal, we have institutionalized our national framework. Previously, we also do a study visit to Laos to see on now the policy and the operational level. And we are looking at, like Hello Trust is doing the non-technical survey, and also looking at the technical survey with our mapping. And then we increase our capability underwater. What we need, a small nation like Solomon Islands, we need a long-term technical support, so as the capacity development and also the environment and research collaboration, which is the finding just recently, and we need what's the next step forward. In closing, so to mention, underwater munitions are not relics of the past, but they are constraints on our future. Thus, I will close with that, and then thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's really interesting to see that you even have a piece at least of sea between your islands, even called now the Iron Bottom Sound. So it even led that there is so much laying down there that you even named it after this. Maybe still a quick question. You said there's not a lot of research of how much is there. Are there still some sort of estimates of how much could be there, like very rough estimates, or to what extent do you have still maybe numbers and quantities?
So from the recent study, research by the University of Queensland, the extent is roughly more than 1 million. Yeah, that is both of land and underwater. But underwater, we don't have that exact number.
Very impressive number. Are there any direct responses, reactions? Otherwise, we'll head over to the next speaker. I think we now heard it already. Technology is quite expensive when we go underwater, but UNDP actually now came up with an initiative that looks towards low-cost technologies, and Sean Morehouse will tell us more about this.
Okay, so we decided we wanted to come up with an innovative way to see if we could come up with a solution for the problems of underwater ordnance. And we're looking at it twofold. We're looking at it, can we actually find it, number one, using a tool which is inexpensive, and can we also use that tool for affected communities so they can find it and avoid it if they're going fishing or they have other activities in the water. So I'm just going to talk through why we chose underwater explosive ordnance. We chose what we call a crowd-solving solution, so I'll just talk through that briefly. What was the problem we wanted to find the solution to, and what were the actual results of the challenge we put forward? So why did we choose underwater ordnance? We could have chosen any problem in the world, but we think the problem of unexploded ordnance is so severe, and you've seen those great videos. I don't have any great videos, but you've seen those great videos showing the sheer scale of the dumping of unexploded, or actually explosive ordnance, into the sea. We mentioned Switzerland. Switzerland recently had a challenge to, I think, was it 100,000 francs was the winner? Switzerland is looking for a solution to deal with the underwater explosive ordnance in a vast number of lakes in Switzerland. So this is not limited to post-conflict countries. This is a problem that affects freshwater, it affects saltwater, numerous countries throughout the world. I think in essence what we've done, or what previous generations have done, they've sort of poisoned the planet. And when you think about it, if you're going to dump munitions made of steel in salt water, over time that steel is going to rust, it's going to break down, and you're going to have the contents released into the ocean. Now we know that high explosives are toxic, they're also carcinogens, generally speaking, and that's horrible. But think back to World War I, when all of this poison gas was used, mustard gas, phosgene gas, etc. When that starts to get released into the waters, we are really going to have a severe problem. In the Solomon Islands, the Japanese government funded Dr. Stacy Pisano at the back to do an environmental study, public health study, into the effects of this explosive ordnance. And now maybe I don't know enough about this, I'm not an expert in underwater explosive ordnance, but I know when you start finding explosives in the food chain that we have a problem. I know that when we have heavy metal contamination left behind after the munitions have been cleared, then we have a problem. So I think this stands to be an inflection point for humanitarian mine action, where we get rid of the explosive hazard, but the public health risk and the environmental hazard remains. So simply getting rid of the ordnance isn't good enough. If it's been in the ground for 80 years, it has long-term effects on the environment. So saying that, we wanted to give some of these communities a low-cost way to be able to avoid the ordnance that they find. And in the Solomon Islands, the study said people know to avoid some areas because they get sick from eating the bivalves, the shellfish from those areas. And that is a result of the contamination that comes from this ordnance in the ground. So we decided we'd have a crowd-solving challenge. I had no idea what a crowd-solving challenge was, so it was quite interesting to see. Essentially, you have a large group of people throughout the world. They're not experts in underwater ordnance. They're not environmental experts. A lot of them are sort of amateur scientists. And using the internet, we can connect to this large body of people. In fact, we had 700,000 people that we were connected to, theoretically, who could come up with a challenge like this. And that is a real benefit for us, because I think we often look inwards. In our development, we look for the same old solutions, whereas we're attracting people from all over the world who are not necessarily thinking about mine action. They come from different fields, and they have ideas. So we get a lot more sort of creativity and innovative solutions. The challenges, yeah, there's a lot of people out on the internet who might not be as expert as they think. So they can put forward ideas that are not, I'm going to be polite, as useful as they could be. So there's a company called Wazoku, and UND partnered with Wazoku, and this is what they do. They do this crowd-solving challenge. It's the first time they'd partnered with a UN agency, but they have done some other humanitarian challenges before. So the 700,000 people in Wazoku's innocentive global solver community, it's called, helped us to develop what we're calling affordable tools to find and mark underwater explosive ordnance. And we had a high net worth individual actually offer a financial prize for that. It wasn't me. So the parameters of the problem was, first of all, it had to work in both salt water and fresh water. And as I said before, the key difference in just finding the ordnance here is we're not just finding it to be able to deal with it, we're also finding it so communities can avoid it. And like I said, it's important to stress that point. We wanted them to come up with a solution of no more than $5,000 per unit, so we can roll this out at scale to a lot of communities that do not have a lot of financial resources. And we're looking at something that would work at depths 5 to 30 meters. So we're not looking at deep water, we're looking at waters immediately off the shore, shallow waters. So the results of this, we got 335 suggested solutions. It's the most number of solutions that Wazoku has had for any of their humanitarian crowd-solving challenges. Our problem now is we have to go through 335 suggested solutions, find a way to assess which ones are more worthy, and feed them through to the next stage of the process. There is a mine action technology group, and we've asked them to assist us. So we're hoping to get a collaborative effort together, and hopefully we will actually come up with a solution that is affordable and it works. Any burning questions from the floor before I hand over? No, we don't know what the answer is yet. We're still working through them. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Then with this in mind, I'm very happy to, now as we've heard, We now looked especially on the old remnants of war and what was dumped into the ocean or kind of also jettisoned. Now we look on munition looking more in the present and in the future. And for that, Professor Christian Büger from the University of Copenhagen and fellow of the United Nations Institute on Disarmament Research will enlighten us in this regard a bit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to JPI Ocean and Paul for putting this panel together. As the last speaker, it falls on me to talk about the present mines and the future mines. And the immediate takeaway point from that is we should start planning ahead the type of mine risks we will have in future because of contemporary warfare, but also because of weapon development. So I'd like to sketch out that problem a little bit and point you also towards the significant norm deficits that we are actually seeing there. Very quickly on UNIDIR's maritime security work stream, that was a line of work that was launched in 2024, and one of our major outputs was this report, Securing the Seas, which basically tries to map out the big challenges of maritime security in the future. And I was also very happy to be able to brief the UN Security Council last year on that report. And that was part of a series, an ongoing series in the UN Security Council on maritime security. So what we do in the report is we set out a number of mega trends for the maritime domain, and we outline on that basis 20 challenges. And if you look carefully on this list of challenges, our number 4 is actually the return of sea mine risks. So why a return, and how does that currently matter? What we can witness over the last 5 to 10 years is a significant increase of the use of naval mines. And that, first of all, concerns the Red Sea, where over the last 10 years, Houthi forces have used mines, some of which have been floating, some of which have arrived to the shores of Somalia. Equally, in the Black Sea, we have 2 countries having employed mines, and several of them were floating. Floating mines present a significant risk, not only for the shipping industry, but also for fishing communities and potentially coastal communities if they wash up on shore. Perhaps most dramatically is the current situation in the Strait of Hormuz, where the situation for now is a little bit more unclear. We're still in a warlike situation, and as you all know, that implies that we are also in the midst of the fog of war. It is not fully clear how many mines are in the strait, and Iran has put out a warning to the international shipping community where they declared a hazardous area. So here we are looking at 3 different regional seas where mines are currently being employed in armed conflict, and each of these situations is linked to problems of floating mines as well. So this is the first line of the problem. The second one is the fact that the naval mine market is a significant growth market. So we are literally looking into the return of naval mines, and the market has in many ways swung back significantly. And there's quite a lot of countries which are currently investing heavily in sea mines, and that includes countries in Northern Europe, the United States, Australia, and it is pretty much a global phenomenon. The contemporary mines are not the mines that we were used to. They are not contact mines, but they are increasingly getting smart. The new generation of mines has a certain degree of autonomy. They are increasingly linked to integrated information sharing and surveillance systems, and they can be programmed from distance. So we are looking at a significant evolution of weapon systems here that bring about a broad range of challenges. Now, how does the international law actually look like for sea mines? Well, if you look into the legal landscape, it is actually quite disappointing. The only formal treaty that we do have on the use of sea mines is the Hague Convention 8 from 1907 that deals with simple contact mines. That is the last formal treaty that we have on the use and clearance of sea mines. The second main legal source is the Cove Channel case that was brought before the International Court of Justice, and that is the second main legal source from 1949, and through that case established that countries that employ mines do have clearance obligations, and they do have warning obligations vis-à-vis non-belligerent states and vis-à-vis the civilian shipping community. It also introduced the principle of non-interference, so you cannot just go to another state and clear mines without the state giving you permission to do so. The rest of the legal discussion is all in the realm of customary law that is based on legal opinion, experts sitting together and passing out what laws apply. The most widely agreed upon manual is the one from San Remo from 1994. It was the outcome of the tanker wars in the Gulf, and that is the currently most up-to-date legal source. The Newport Manual, which is a more recent attempt by the United States to revise the rules we find in the San Remo Manual, is very contested because it has mainly been led by the United States. There's an ongoing legal process in the ICRC here in Geneva to come up with a revision of the San Remo Manual, but this is very much ongoing. So what's the problem here? First of all, the rules of how use can be used in situations of conflict are highly ambiguous. Secondly, if we are looking at actors such as the Houthis, we have a clear legal gap if it comes to non-state actors. There's a counter-terrorism regime of the United Nations that, however, only partially can address that. In the light of the significant reinvestments in minefare, perhaps the most problematic challenge is that we do not have any legal obligation that whoever buys mines and invests mines also invests into mine clearance capacities. And that is potentially worrying the moment that middle powers such as Indonesia or Malaysia, for instance, invest in mines, but do not invest at the same time in mine clearance capacities. So here we are looking at a significant capacity gap and potential future problems. The last norm deficit, and that is part of the broader discussion on autonomous vessels and AI in contemporary warfare, concerns autonomous mine-laying vessels, but also the 5th and 6th generation of mines that are increasingly autonomous. To end it here, I think when we're talking about underwater explosives, when we're talking about sea mines, we should always keep in mind the past, the present, but also start anticipating the future and think about what kind of mines will be cleared in the future, what kind of processes and capabilities will we actually need, so we don't end up in a situation that we're in right now if it comes to legacy mines from the world wars. We need to find ways of how to deal with the substantial proliferation of mines, the large-scale return of naval mines. We'll require a sort of norm-setting process which can be partially done in the ICRC, but ideally would be addressed by the UN General Assembly. And last but not least, I think we are also looking at capacity building needs in terms of mine clearance at sea of the contemporary mines, but also the future mines. I thank you so much here, and I very much look forward to the questions and the discussion.
Thank you very much, Christian. And with this in mind, I think we can come to our Q&A session. I might want to take up one point that kind of, I think, connects all four presentations so far, and we've heard it, either is it the former, the old munitions, or the ones that are currently being placed and the awareness about it. So we've heard here in the last 2.5 days also a lot about risk education. In this regard, maybe so how is this maybe done in Germany and also in the Solomon Islands, and how could it be done or should it be done also when we look now more into the future? How do we speak about it to not actually scare the communities and the society, but actually be prepared in this regard? Please, Jens.
Yeah, so is it on? I think it's on. So in Germany, we started from the scientific side, actually. So in Germany, the issue of munition was for a long time not debated at all, not from the government, because the government was simply afraid of, if they acknowledge that there is an issue, people would ask, so what are you doing about it? And they had the idea that it might become quite expensive. So they simply said close to nothing. But luckily, the research is quite open, and we as researchers simply took up this issue. Actually, we were asked at the time. So I'm coming from Schleswig-Holstein, which is the northernmost state in Germany. We are at the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, just below Denmark. So that's where we are. So, and actually the ministry in Schleswig-Holstein asked Geomar, can you do something about it, because you are good in doing marine research? And we said, yes, we can do this, because it's just 1.5 hours steaming from Geomar, from the premises towards munition dump sites. And we simply figured out that there are toxic substances being released into the environment. And we gave public talks. We were invited by different parties who want to know about this. The citizens became a little bit concerned, and we simply reported this, and journalists came and asked us, so what is the issue here? What can you say? And we showed them what the issue is. So it came up to the knowledge of the politicians, and they got worried as well, because they are also living at the shore. Yeah? So, and they picked it up. So there is now a kind of consensus in Germany that we should do something about it, which at the end of the day culminated in this 100 million euro test clearance of munition, with the idea to do this on a large scale. So this was really bottom-up pressure, informing the public about this, and then the public put pressure on the politics to do this. So this was the way, and this worked in Germany, because in Germany this munition issue is not, per law, not something that the military is responsible for. In Germany, it's not the military that's responsible. We do not know who is responsible exactly, but it's not the military, that's what we know. In other countries, it's the opposite. Typically, it's the military, and as soon as it's business of the military, it's a little bit of a closed shop. Yeah? But science, I think, is the way to raise the awareness, to go out and say, oh, the fish is really, or the people are getting sick because they are eating clams which are contaminated with TNT remains. This is the way forward. So then you know who is contaminating your area. And I think this is what should be at the bottom. in simple words, monitor your area about the environmental risk and know about whether you have an issue or not. You might not have an issue, but you should know that you do not have an issue. And for this, you need some monitoring. So that's the base.
Thank you very much. And I think those, going out to the public, having those events and speaking about it quite honestly is probably really, to some extent, the way forward. Are there in the Solomon Islands any programs in this regard, or how do you inform your society and communities about those risks that are actually out there? Or maybe now with the findings from University of Queensland, any ideas, plans how to disseminate this knowledge and the findings?
Yeah, so firstly, we have instances happen in the past years. One instance is towards the western part of the country, bombs near the coastal being exposed, content of picric acid. And then, fishes got died, and the locals, they picked it and cook it and eat it, and then they have internal, like diarrhea, sick from the body. Other instances is that people living along the coastal, they find explosive ordnance, and because of the weight it has, and tied to a rope, and for their canoe or boats as an anchorage, as an anchor. So when we do our, going out to the islands and respond to call-outs, remove explosive ordnance and destroy it, we also reach out and tell them what to do and what not to do, especially at the operational level. Now, because of the, the research finding by the University of Queensland, we start spreading out the awareness of those risks to the extent of residue of explosives. So now it has come to our national government level, and now EOIE has become one of a strategy that we need to push forward to let our communities, our people, to understand of the risk of UXO, not only in the Solomon Islands but across the Pacific Islands, especially that small island nation. Thank you.
Very interesting points. And hopefully those happenings or how to go about it to use it as an anchor will not be used in the future anymore so much. Sean, when it comes then also to your initiative, the call, and now, this huge number of solutions that were suggested, what is there actually, to some extent, maybe also the timeline? Are there any plans when we will then have the one solution? And then also, how will you exactly, if there are already any ideas, how you will exactly go about it?
There was a timeline. It's now passed. One of the problems we face is I'm not a scientist, and a lot of the solutions that were proposed were, of course, scientific. So we need to find a way to make sure that when we do our first round of evaluations, the great solution that somebody famous or somebody who is not famous has thought about does not fall through the net, right? So we have to structure our process in a way, it's a series of levels. We can reject the ridiculous ones out of hand from the beginning, or can we? Because it may seem like a ridiculous solution when you first look at it, but there may actually be a germ of knowledge in that. But 335 solutions, there's 3 of us in the mine action team, by the way. It's going to take some time, but honestly, I was skeptical when we started this process, and I'm now more hopeful. So I think perhaps there is something in it. Thanks.
Great, thanks a lot. And I think overall, I don't know to what extent, how far you are in the process, but we have your research community, and I think we can definitely spread the word to, in case maybe also support this, the analysis of what could be the right solution. Christian, now looking into the future, I don't know if you have already any plans on how can we now spread the word. To some extent the word is spread through media anyway about the current situation, but maybe also towards the actually looking how we can shape policy also. what are there certain mechanisms that we could maybe push or should be pushed with this regard?
Thank you for the question. The first point I would like to raise again is, and I really want everyone to have this as a take-home message here in the room, how different the land and the sea actually are when it comes to mines. And sea mines is literally something that has been forgotten a little bit, and it is good to see that that efforts are now increasing. But there are two crucial differences. One is the geophysical environment is very different, and the deeper at sea, the more tricky it actually gets. And with that, the health impacts are different compared to land. But let's also not forget it affects people, fishing, coastal communities, the shipping industry, and so on. The second key difference is the legal situation. We are under the law of the sea. It really matters whether mines are in the territorial waters, whether they're in the exclusive economic zones, whether they're on the high seas, or as the cases that I was flagging, whether they are in vicinity to international straits that we all depend on. And I do hope that the current situation in the Strait of Hormuz leads a little bit to a global rethinking, recognizing of how much damage can actually be done with a mine threat, a recognition that mines are being used and that we are going to see more and more mines in the future, and a recognition how weak our international law is. When I started to look into naval mines as a challenge last year, I didn't anticipate that we were going to have a Strait of Hormuz crisis or anything like that. And I was personally shocked going through the international law, how little there actually is. So that is an urgent message that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz. And if you couple that with the problem of the investments in mines, then we really we also need to think about the good science for the future in terms of clearing that up. But perhaps we should also start forcing the defense industry to develop environmental friendly mines. And I'm not sure whether the ocean scientists can contribute to that debate or have any ideas on that.
Any direct response, Jens?
There are metals and plastic that dissolve after a certain time in the water, so you could do something like this, so that the mine simply dissolves. I don't know. I think it's important to raise this thinking. It's also new for me, so it was really nice meeting you today. But this needs to be put forward, because otherwise, I mean, we now have to deal with a legacy, not only from the Second, but also from the First World War. And if we now start, if there are more issues coming up, then future generations have the same issue. Yeah? And we have to deal with rotten, stupid metal objects. Yeah? The future generation might have to deal with some super smart, kind of not detectable object. Yeah? We can detect metal objects with magnetometers. They are big, they are bulky. That's reasonably easy. We have methods to do this. A super smart mine is close to invisible. And this is really an issue. We should tell the people that this is a big issue that comes up, and future generations have to deal with it. It's ridiculous to do something like that. That's my comment to that.
Thank you very much. If this might also open up the floor for any questions. I don't know, I think here was number one and then here. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much, panel and audience. Good afternoon to you all. My name is Henry, and I'm from Papua New Guinea. So I will give you a context of what the situation is like in terms of underwater contamination in Papua New Guinea, and also ask a question. So basically, World War II came through Papua New Guinea as well, and we do have a lot of contamination in terms of underwater as well. Now, as per the presentation from Dr. Pigino, we do have the same situation in essence as like our neighbor Solomon Islands. Now, recently we had dying fish appearing throughout the area is contaminated, and that was probably made much more worse by the recent Cyclone Mila. Now, we've realized that throughout our operations, we've gone through places as well and realized those places have a higher level of blood diseases as well. Now, my question is, since Papua New Guinea doesn't have a national standard and also a proper national authority, is there a way we can be assisted to do our research and also our survey? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's probably, I think, also more directed toward Jens.
As I said, I mean, we do this now for 10 years, and I'm a professor, so I know how to educate people. Yeah, at least I think I know how to do this. So we can definitely be of help, and you can contact me. Can give you my card. And it's not just me. As I said, there's a European community now being set up with toxicologists. So we have toxicologists who are human toxicologists, but also environmental toxicologists who do this. Yeah, and we have several people who have knowledge. And we talked about during lunchtime what would be good. We also discussed the 5,000 euro solution to find mines. And I said, this is okay, but if you have cheap equipment, can still be good, yeah, for the price, yeah. But sometimes you need expensive equipment to get good results, yeah, and you want to have good results. And the idea, my idea was, why not try to bring a group of experts together who can do surveys and pay those experts to do the surveys in countries who cannot do this, externally funded. I think this is a proper way forward. Don't leave it to the countries. I mean, we educate people over years and years, and they get expertise over years. It takes time to build this up by yourself, but without a support, it's possible. And we don't have to think twice what we need to do. We can do it straight away if we have the means. Yeah, we don't have to ask what to do. We can do this. At the end of the day, we need money and people willing to do this, and we can push this forward. But for the educational side and low-level monitoring, we can start tomorrow to send you some sampling kits where you take water and we analyze it and we tell you what we find in the water. So this can go very quickly.
Thank you very much.
I think that's maybe also a nice thing that just to bring awareness how we also now work. Even when it is about scientific or research in this sense, we've also became across that, okay, I mean, we can obviously connect with all the different scientists and there are certain needs, but this also has limitations. So we also need to open up who else is going out day by day to the sea and could actually support research activities. It's maybe also coast guards that could take sample taking, etc. And if we can involve them, we become a way bigger community, and in this regard also get more awareness. Sean, you have a comment to that?
Henry, in regard to your question, I may suggest that you get the relevant government minister to write to the UNDP resident representative in Papua New Guinea and request assistance. And that then allows us to work together with you to see what you actually need, see if we can attract some donor funding to come in and fund it. But I think that's probably a solid takeaway from this. So, and then they would contact us in the headquarters, and we'd see how we can help. But that might be a course of action for you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot. There's a comment here.
Thank you, sir, very much. My name is Sufyan Al-Sus. I don't know if I mentioned my name before. From IOCTR. I just want to say something which I am not responsible about it. Long time ago, I saw in a Far East one machine which can work underwater, let's say a demining machine. It can be done as a demining machine, or there's some, now the new technology, we can search for small submarines, remote control submarines, which can also, with cameras or with sensitive things, which can also do the solution. If you want to know about this machine, I have to go back to my records and I will send it to you. just which company and how it works. But I'm not responsible until this minute because it was, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I saw it in my eyes. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, as we said in the beginning, we're of course happy to have whatever suggestions and then take them up and learn from them. I think there was a comment and then there in the back.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. My name is Iraklis. I'm from Macau University of Science and Technology. So you talked about some technology to detect the targets under the water. And to my understanding, you use some acoustic techniques, something like that. But what if the target is buried in the subsurface? So especially when it comes to rivers, for example, we are expecting some of these targets to be buried in the subsurface. So is there any state of the art right now that can do that?
There is. So you use, again, hydroacoustics to look into the subsea floor. So you use lower frequency. So it's like a sub-bottom profile that you use for, if you want to do construction, you need to know, okay, how muddy or what's the depth of the muddy part before you have something stable. So this can be used. There are also low frequency SRS systems, but the most important one is just use magnetic surveys. Yeah, and that's typically you do multi-beam mapping, so the morphology is mapped hydroacoustically. You do a magnetic mapping, and you also do side scan mapping, which has higher resolution hydroacoustics. But looking into the seafloor is possible. It's an issue if you have, or when you have aluminium mines or smart mines who are not built out of metallic objects, metal anymore. So you can't detect them magnetically anymore. Yeah? But there are, for the common old ones, there are possibilities.
Yeah. Comment in the past, and then I think we also have to
Sebastian Kazak, Mines Advisory Group. I'm thinking more about the legal frameworks and looked it up. We call it mines other than AP mines in the CCW jargon, so the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. And they actually have a review conference end of the year. So if we think about, I think they have a group of experts, they call them, I think, in CCW, and they have a group on the mines other than AP mines because it includes the anti-tank mines, anti-vehicle mines. And I think we all agree they should be banned and so on. And when I think about these floating mines, they should be banned for sure. But CCW is not the most effective instrument. But still, I think if we get the situation of Hormuz now, the Strait of Hormuz, there might be quite a consensus across nations that usually don't have a consensus. So I'm just saying this because I think it might be interesting in the end of the year. That's review conference is coming up. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect, that's very good to know. And I mean, this is to some extent also our aim to shape policy in the end. We're also aware of the International Mine Action Standard. There is one from 2014 on underwater explosive survey and clearance, which we now also want to look more into it. Are there maybe certain points now over the last 12 years that we might want to adapt or adjust? So we also want to look into this a bit more. With this, I'm showing some more slides that we can also actually stay in touch over time. So on the one hand, to raise some more awareness of what is currently going on. You have here on the side, we produced some booklets of ongoing research projects. So happy to have a look at that, see what is going on, which stakeholders are engaged in all of this, and reach out, obviously. One main aim that we're currently focusing is that we know that knowledge on this topic is very dispersed. Like there is no centralized kind of really platform that collects all of the knowledge, especially taking place in research. So for that, we've started to create this website, munitionsinthesea.eu. It's far away from being really perfect, but it will be developed over the next 2.5 years. There might be already some interesting findings for you to see there. In this regard, we also want to promote a bit ongoing and future events that will come up. So also feel free to really reach out. You can find on the website what will happen, especially in the next 1.5 months. But we have also already planned for September a workshop in Monte Carlo, Monaco for the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. And next year in January, we will go to Constanța, Romania for the Black Sea. With this, we really want to get a clearer picture of what is going on in the different sea basins and see how we can move forward, assess the situation, and bring the stakeholders together. We've also created a list of publications. So what is actually out there on scientific knowledge on the topic? Currently, it actually has already increased. I think now the number is 870 publications that we put together, and this will increase over time. Also, if you're aware of any publications that are not yet in this list, please tell us. We really want to make a repository that knowledge is centralized and accessible for everyone and open source. And with this in mind, stay engaged with us. We have also a LinkedIn channel where we try to inform about ongoing developments and efforts. Follow us, reach out if you have any questions. Obviously, we're also now standing here. Come approach to us, and we can find solutions and collaborations for the future. With a newsletter, you can also subscribe to this one. And with this in mind, I'm again thanking the panelists up here. Very great and thankful to be at this prestigious event here in Geneva. We hope we can let the discussion rolling over the next years, have it a bit more regular next to the landmines to also look towards underwater. Thank you very much.